Good morning, social media breakfast. How y'all doing? Let's hear it. Woo! Yes, okay, good. And thank you for those of you who are joining us on the live stream. We are going to get started. So this morning, we're going to I have an amazing guest this morning, first of all, let me just say that. But Mila Clark and I have known each other for a very long time. And when I first met her, she was a consultant, like maybe many of you are, or, she was helping out clients and doing all that. And then she was working for realsies in a job for a while. And then she said, hey, I'm going to become an influencer. We're all like, an influencer? How do you do that? How are you going to make money on that? And so she started doing that and really because out of her passion. And we're going to talk about the passion that she has for those of us who have, and by the way, can be like nominally in your community because I am pre-diabetic. So there's that. So there's a lot of people that are dealing with sugar and in their blood, and you did that too. So Mila is going to talk to us about that. But I also wanted to start with passion because you and really like you have a huge background in marketing. You really understand marketing. And so I think those things together, like putting your passion for marketing and your passion for helping people that are in this particular situation has made you such an amazing person to talk to this audience because you've built a lot of amazing things around that. So anyway, let's get started. So Mila, say hey to Mila. Awesome. So let's just start at the beginning. What made you make that transition from like a day-to-day job to doing your own thing? Like, first of all, just being an influencer and getting out there. So let's start there because I feel like that's the beginning of this particular story.
Yeah. So I feel like this story kind of starts in 2012. And I started writing recipes, like just because it was fun. I started to post them on Facebook. People would ask me, how did you make this? What is this? Like, can you tell me more? Can you give me the recipe? And it honestly was born out of being lazy. I was like, I don't want to have to respond to 20 different comments about this recipe. Like, here's a link to it. And so I started a blog just so I could give people the information really easily. In 2016, I was going through a lot of health issues. I was like super fatigued all the time. It just didn't feel normal. And so went to the doctor. Long story short, I was misdiagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I worked for 4 years trying to get my A1C, which is the measure of your blood sugar over time, into range to get healthier. Nothing I was doing was working. And I kept being told by my doctors, like, you're just not doing something right. You're not working hard enough. Like, most people can get this under control and you're not doing it. After COVID started, the big change in everybody's lives, I found out that I was misdiagnosed with type 2 diabetes and actually had a form of type 1 diabetes called LADA, latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. So I needed to be on insulin the entire time, and I wasn't. During that time also, that like kind of tumultuous transition, I was really burned out by work. I was burned out by dealing with all of these health things, trying to show up as the best coworker and employee that I could, trying to kind of like fall into a new job at a new company and figuring out my way. And I was just so exhausted that finally it was kind of like a throw my hands up, I quit moment. And my best friend, Katie, if any of you like ever see me around, like Katie and I are attached at the hip, but she was like, don't you make money from your blog? Like, why wouldn't you just do that? And I was like, well, nobody does that. Like, nobody just quits their job and like gives up their health insurance and gives up what like their good corporate position to be a blogger like that. No, absolutely not. And she was like, well, like, maybe you should just try it if you're feeling that burned out and obviously you need money to live. And so I was like, yeah, maybe I could try that. And what was so remarkable to me at the time was that like this wasn't something that people were doing. And it also, I think like everyone in my life thought I was insane. They were like, you can't quit this really good job that you have that's really stable to do your passion project. Why would you do that? Why would anybody do that? And for me, the answer was I kind of get a shot at some freedom. Like I get to work on something that I love. I get to create in a way that really serves me. And I also get to do something that's like not tethered to anyone. Like I don't really have to answer to anyone in that stage because I get to do this thing on my own. And so what kind of started out as like let's try this and see what happens ended up becoming my full-time job and is still my full-time job.
It sure is. And I remember the transition. Luckily, I got to see all this. Katie Marino also is somebody that I know really well. And by the way, she's like kind of the behind the scenes gal, but she does like all of the yellow. You can blame that on Katie. She's the one who told me I should be in yellow. So I still am in yellow. Thank you, Katie. It works for me. So yeah, that's the problem that I think a lot of people have whenever they're coming into this kind of idea, this jump that you have to leap into something like this feels kind of big and a little bit scary. Were you scared?
I was terrified. Particularly because like I may be like a type A.5 kind of person. Like I like structure, I like knowing what's going to happen, and I like predictability. And so it was really hard for me to wake up the day after I gave my 2 weeks notice and be like, all right, no one's going to tell me what to do. Like I actually have to make the rules and make the parameters and do the work and make it profitable. And there's no safety. There's no safety net. I can't fail. Like if I fail, it all just is done. And I could always go back and get a job, but I also don't want it to fail because it is my passion. So I had this like pressure in two ways of, one, you have to make money to survive. Two, you also have to not lose the love that you have for this thing that you feel really close to. And so that, I think those were the two big fears in my head, where I'm this isn't going to be successful because now it's on me, and like, do I even know what I'm doing after I just quit everything to like dive headfirst into this project.
Yeah, and you were really it was a passion project. I do believe that for you. I mean, I've seen that. And you like really approach this in a very different way than a lot of other creators around food and health and wellness. Could you talk just a little bit about like how you found yourself in the marketplace around this topic different than others?
Yeah, I think that it came from two things, really. One was just listening to what people had to say. You kind of talked about this just a second ago before we started. But hearing people out when they said, I don't feel heard, I don't feel listened to, I don't feel like I have a space where I actually fit, I don't know where I can go to ask questions, I don't know XYZ, like what they don't know, whatever they don't know. And so what I did was approached it as answering these questions from the perspective of a peer, of somebody who is also living at the time with the chronic illness, managing it day to day, being misdiagnosed, and kind of formulating my content around those answers that people were seeking. Even if they were super easy, like, I have diabetes, can I eat a blueberry? Someone just wants to know, like, yeah, you can, and here's why. And so I took the route of more of an educational approach than like preaching at people or telling them you have to do X, Y, Z. And I think that format really worked. And then I think the other thing that was really important to me was that the information was also grounded and felt like something that people could actually absorb. So I wasn't speaking to anyone in medical speak or nutritionist terms. I was really giving people information in a way that could meet them where they were. And that really helped people feel more comfortable and then also want to learn more because they felt listened to, they felt heard, and they felt like somebody was actually meeting them where they were.
No, I like that. They felt heard. And you talked about joy of food a lot. So I want to kind of bring that out because the way that you talked about food was not it didn't feel restrictive to me. So could you talk a little bit about the joy that you want to bring into the conversation?
Yeah, I think that's another thing that people experience a lot is they're often told, when you are diagnosed with diabetes, you have to make all of these changes. And it is true. You really do have to focus on the ways that you eat, the ways that you move, your adherence to your medication, all of those things. They're really important. But I think a lot of people have that conversation, and what they hear is you can't include your culture. You can't include foods that you love. You can't have dinner with your family and eat the same things that they do because you are dealing with this condition. And so I think that message is really hard for people. But it's also not the right message because, like, you don't have to remove joy and food joy from your life to be able to manage diabetes well. And so that was something that was really important to me. Like, I know that I had been told when I first saw a dietitian, it's the worst story I feel like ever, but I sat in her office and she said, well, what do you like to eat? And I said, well, my family is Jamaican. So we really like a lot of things like steamed cabbage and rice and peas and oxtail and jerk chicken and curry goat and like all of these like really delicious dishes that are cooked in like a really healthy way. They're usually stewed or braised. And she like interrupted me mid-sentence and said, no, you can't have any of those things if you're going to manage diabetes. And she like hands me a list that's like kale, carrots, like, and I was like, just plain kale. Like, that's what you mean? She goes, yeah, it's going to be great for your blood sugars. And I was like, okay. And so I felt like having a conversation like that was so like awkward and weird and disheartening, really. And when I talked to other people, they were like, actually, I've had really similar conversations. I've had these conversations around not being able to fit the things that I really like and that like fuel me and that are easy to make and that I have access to. And so in that conversation, I realized like, oh, like people actually do want food joy. And like that concept of food joy is something that runs through kind of everything I do, is like, the life is too short. You don't have to be miserable to be healthy. And like, if you can take the steps to be able to introduce some of that joy back in balance, you'll do just fine and you'll have the health outcomes that you really want. And I wanted people to have that hope and know that like life doesn't just end when you get this diagnosis. Like, you'll be fine, you'll make it through, and you also can still be happy. It's okay.
That's crazy. That's a crazy thing, but I also feel like that's really good because you said something else in there about that I caught about community. You know, you eat in community, you like have family in community, you have friends in community, but also that's what you were building around your brand was this community. So can you tell me like when you realized that you had a community, when did you realize that?
It kind of started when other people who were in this like and very loosely community were messaging, and they were like, I want to meet other people who are going through the same things as me, and I know that like hundreds of people make your recipes. Like, have you ever thought about having like just like a group for people to be able to kind of share what they're making, share what they're doing? And I really hadn't. I was kind of just like, I'm doing this in isolation. I like being on my little island and just like pushing out a recipe, and then everybody tells me how much they love it. Like, I'm good with that. I don't need to like manage anybody. But people kept asking, and they really were like, I have this desire to meet others like who are going through the same thing. And the message that I kept hearing over and over was, I'm the only person that I know who's dealing with this. And that struck a chord to me because there are like 800 million people in the world living with a form of diabetes. And so to feel alone when there are 800 million other people, I was like, there's a connection point that's missing somewhere. And not that I can connect all 800 million people, that's never going to happen. But like, I have my little slice of the internet that I can open and facilitate those conversations. And so in 2023, I started kind of looking at ways to do that, whether it was a Facebook group, which easily became no, whether it was like building out my own app. And that's kind of where things popped off. Was I felt like I was looking for all of these solutions and there wasn't one that really spoke to me, and one that I wanted to own the platform that I was bringing people to. I didn't want it to have to like follow the rules and restrictions of like whatever platform I brought it to. I didn't want it to ever be shut down or go away. Like any day Facebook could say, we're just not doing groups anymore. So all your connections are gone.
Or just get rid of your entire account. I know people that, that happens.
Yeah.
Raise your hand as if this has ever happened to you in the room. Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew that already, but there was, we lost access.
Yeah. Like for me, I was like, I don't want to bring people into a system or a place and then not be able to have access to it. Like that just didn't sit well with me. And so as I kept looking, I finally found that there was this company called Circle, and they're pretty amazing in terms of what they have built to facilitate communities. You can use their platform for courses, community. I use it as kind of like a recipe catalog, and then we'll probably talk about the other part of the app that I have. But the core function really is that facilitation of community. And so when I found their platform, I was like, this is it. Like this allows me to build out what I want, that is on a stable platform, that gives me all of the features that I want, but at the same time brings people to a place that they can just like casually browse if they want to. They don't have to be stuck here. It's not like kind of like infinite scrolling. They can come for whatever information they want or whatever event they want or whatever like piece of like recipes they want, and then they can leave and they can come back whenever they need to. And so it didn't commit anyone to anything really deeply, but I also felt like, okay, I still get to own this platform in the way that I want, and it gives me the opportunity later to expand and do different things that I want to do to make the community a little bit more useful.
No, that's great. I mean, thinking about your tech stack, I think during this time is like one of the hardest things to do as a entrepreneur, because you feel like you're buying into a specific tech stack. Even when you go to Circle, you're buying into this tech stack. Like if you ever had to move to another one, it's like a big thing to do, right? So thinking about where you sit on that is so important. So thank you for walking through how you made that decision, because I feel like it's a really difficult one. There's others, like school is a good one, but maybe it doesn't have as much. But especially if you're talking about healthcare topics, some of these platforms kind of restrict that in many ways. Do you find that that's true? Because you're on Meta mostly, right? Your Instagram, Facebook kind of is where you live. The Hangry Woman, by the way, the Hangry Woman. Please follow her.
Yeah, I mean, that was also a big consideration, was that I also felt like on those platforms, like I mostly am like Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. It's typically the socials that I do for my company. And I was also feeling like I'm sharing this really great information, and I hate that I have to pay to get people to actually see it. Like organically, it sometimes can take off, but most of the time it's not. And so like I'm having to buy ads, I'm having to invest in their platform to make my stuff work. And I didn't want that. I was like, I want a place where people know that when they land there, they're getting the information that I'm wanting them to see, and that they're asking for, not just that I want to promote to them. But for me, like it was kind of interesting in picking those platforms, because I really did have to I had to think future wise. I couldn't just think like, okay, I'm buying this platform today, or I'm buying into this today, and like this is what it's going to look like until I decide that it's not. It really was like a thoughtful process of like, okay, in 1 year, here's where I want the community to be and what I want it to look like, and having to map out all of the features that I wanted in it, all of the like different ways that I wanted to use it and bring people into the community, and then kind of figure out going backwards, like, okay, what's actually going to fit and make this work. And I think that was really the hardest part, was deciding on what the future would look like when I had no idea.
I know you have to make a plan. And I think that's the hard thing whenever you're running a business or starting something, whether it's an idea inside of a company, even you have to think about what is the 5-year plan And right now, I think 5 years is as far as you need to go, like 2, 3, 4, 5. Like where are you trying to get at? What do you think about that as far as planning ahead? How far are you planning ahead?
I'm planning ahead like 2 years.
Yeah.
I feel like everything is changing so rapidly,
Mhm.
and what feels like it was applicable yesterday sometimes doesn't feel like it's applicable today, particularly with like the introduction of AI tools, and everything being able to be built so quickly. I just wonder like where we go, like it feels like in the last 2 years, AI has been like so fast. It has crept into just about everything that we do. You're seeing it pop up in your calendar. You're seeing it pop up in your email, writing emails for you. Yesterday, I noticed I was going to send a text to my husband, and Apple had already given me the response that I could tap to send to him. And I was like, that's really weird. Like, I want to send that response. I don't want Siri to do it for me or like think for me.
Yeah.
And so just because of like the proliferation of these tools, I think things move so fast that we just have to evaluate in shorter segments because things can change so quickly.
Like so quickly. And in fact, that kind of brings me to the next point that we are going to talk about, which is AI rolls onto the scene and you start thinking. And tell me what kind of came of that. I mean, you were talking about an app a few minutes ago. So, like, what happened? How did this happen?
Yeah. So, have y'all heard of vibe coding?
Yes.
Okay. So, vibe coding is basically telling AI what you want to build, and then it builds it for you, and then you iterate. You can decide like how to rebuild a function that it built. You can decide to tell it that you want to add on to it to do more, but you're just talking to it, sort of like if you've ever used ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. You're literally telling it, I want you to build a modal that pops up with a donation button. You don't have to actually physically write the code. It does it for you. It's a very interesting concept. You still, I think, sort of need to have like a basic knowledge and a background of code, so that you can build out the right things and you don't have to rebuild them when they break later. But I was introduced to vibe coding and I was like, this is neat. Like, I can just build something and like just tell it what I want and it'll do it. And so as I had been kind of working on the community aspect of Hangry Woman and Glucose Guide, which is the app that we have, I was in my master's program and I had asked my professor, like, I kind of have this idea that I want to vibe code a health app that helps people count their carbohydrates. And she was like, okay, interesting. How are you going to like set this up and like what's your plan for doing this? And so I outlined it to her and she goes, that's your capstone. Do this as your capstone project.
Oh, for your capstone for your master's.
Yeah.
So, wow. Okay. So, what tool did you start vibe coding on? There's a bunch of them. So,
there's a billion of them. The one that I used is called Build AI Space, I think. And what's interesting is it does exactly what I said it does. Like, you tell it, I want you to build XYZ, and it does it. And so what was interesting to me was that like I before I started, I didn't know that I actually had like a really functional idea. I was kind of like, oh, this would be cool. And then as I started building it out, I realized like, oh, actually I've thought about the architecture for this for a really long time, and now I can actually do it. And when I kind of like going back to like figuring out the app component and being able to give people something that they could just like hold in their hands, easily download. I was meeting with companies that develop apps and they were all quoting me like $200,000 for wireframes. And so I was like, cool, but
I would love that. Please.
Yeah.
I need an investor. Anybody want to pony up?
Like, that would be great if I had $200,000 to just hand to you for concepts, like not even the build, just the concepts. And so when I figured out that that was a barrier, I was like, well, I guess like this idea is just going by the wayside. This is never going to happen. It's fine. And when I figured out vibe coding, I was like, oh, you can actually build something really functional. I had the basic knowledge to be able to make sure that it could work properly, that it could connect to the right databases, the right APIs. And so I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with like testing this out on a small group of users and seeing how they feel about it. And so in my mind, I was like, if I test this and they say that they hate it and they say that it doesn't work and they are like, no, I don't want this, I won't release it to a wider group. I will throw the idea away. It's fine. It was cool while we started. It's cool while it lasted. But we started out with like a group of 20 users, and the impact for them was like so interesting because there are a lot of carb counting apps everywhere, and they're popping up everywhere now because of vibe coding. Like everybody can basically make an app at this point for anything. But what was really interesting in building it, particularly at the time, was that there were no apps that particularly catered to diabetes. Everything was really general health. I know you've probably heard of like the big carb counting apps. I won't name them because they're my competitors, but you probably have one downloaded. And what was super interesting was like nobody was catering to that message of like healthy blood sugars, no judgment, and just education overall. And so that small test group of users were like, oh my God, I can take a picture of my meal and it gives me the carb count and it's accurate and like it gets it and I don't have to search it in a database. And now I have the knowledge I need to know to like make a decision on like how I decide to take my insulin or like how I time it or how much insulin I take. And so what was really cool was that I was just seeing it as like, oh, this is a fun, nice to know. Like you can go take a picture of an orange and it's going to tell you exactly the carb count, the like estimated size, all of these things. But people were actually using it for day-to-day information and action. And that was something that I hadn't anticipated, was that like people were actually going to use it to make good decisions to further their health. And that became such a cool data point because then people started tracking their A1C against their app usage and seeing like what the impact was of actually counting their carbs. They were learning more about like pairings and swaps for foods that they were like, oh, I would have never thought of this, or I would have never considered that this is how I could swap out a higher carb item for something that's a little bit more balanced and balance my blood sugar. And so for me, it was really cool to have kind of this initial concept of just, oh, like I just want people to learn what's in their food and how to navigate it. And then for people to actually take it and say, no, I'm using it to take an action to like better my health, was kind of the cool outcome of all of that and how it moved forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's really incredible. And what's the data that you used behind it? Was it like your recipes and like what were you using as your database?
So the database is pretty interesting. There are two big databases that we pull from. One is the USDA. So every packaged food and grown food in the US has to be reported to the Department of Agriculture. They put that into a giant database. And
do they have an API?
They have an API that lets you connect to their data. And then you kind of have to sort out everything else on the front end, how it displays, how it comes up. The second is another database called Passio. Together, those two databases and two data sets, and I'll say like Passio is more of the like restaurant packaged goods. So we get like both angles. Together, those two databases have over 18 million foods. So it's like pretty rare that you can't find what you need in the app. And you can literally take a picture of just about anything. And it can find it. It can find, if you take a picture of the barcode, it'll find the UPC to give you back the result. If you take a picture of the front of the like food label, say like a jar of Nutella, take a picture, it'll tell you what the serving size is for that jar. It'll tell you like all of the macronutrient information. Or if you take a picture of a nutrition label, it'll pull out the information of the nutrition label for you and then distill it down and give you back some information about how it works for your blood sugar balance. And so like I wanted something that was that detailed and that specific, that also used like real raw data that was accessible to anyone, but just presented it in a better format in a way that people could like understand and then continue to take those actions with.
That's incredible. If you're in the room, there is a slide that goes by that has a link to Mila's glucose guide. So you definitely want to take a look at that and see what that's about. But really interesting. Here it is right here. If you're on live stream, we can possibly put that in there in the comments later, or just follow her on the Hangry Woman, and you can get it from there at Instagram, or Hangry Woman on Facebook. So with these people coming and saying, this is great, this is working for me, you decided to open it up to a bigger group of people. How did that go? And was there a community component to this too? Like tell us how that kind of worked together, because you have this community and now you have this app. Like how are you putting these two things together?
Yeah, so the way that I ended up structuring the outcome of like how this kind of worked was that the community would be a free space. Anybody could join, anyone can be a part of it. There is no subscription required. Like if you want community, if you want to meet people, if you want to have those conversations, if you want coaching, like there you are, like you've got that. It's accessible, it's open to everyone. For the nutrition app, we integrated it into the community app so you can use it straight from there. So like if you tap the tab that's in the top of the app, you get the nutrition app. You can scan your foods, take your pictures, log your blood sugars, all of that kind of stuff. But then what we also did was kind of like this, I think like connection point where both apps had this like sync with each other. So for like the community aspect to connect back to kind of that like individual carb counting aspect, we did events that like helped people make habit change. So we would do like a themed event, say it's like 20 days of walking. And so we would lay out like, you know, how somebody would achieve that goal. They could check it off their checklist, and then it was like a community competition. So the person who placed the first, who did the most days of their walking, or whatever the challenge was, got like a cool care package at the end that I sent to them. So like a physical box with
I saw that. I saw you actually like were sitting there packing them up. It was on her Instagram. I follow her quite closely, but I was like, what?
Yeah. And so it was because the community is mostly virtual, but it's also worldwide. Like there are people from 11 different countries in the community. And so I wanted to have this like physical touch point, because we can't really, I mean, we can meet in person, but like it would be a huge undertaking that I don't think that I'm capable of.
Whoa, yet.
Yet.
She made me say that earlier.
I'm not capable of it yet. But I wanted people to feel like, okay, this is actually like, this is a real community. Like just because it's virtual doesn't mean that like we're not all real people here. And so being able to compete with each other, and I say compete loosely, like it actually ends up being so sweet. Like people cheer each other on, through the whole thing. And you know, everybody is so like gracious to each other. Everyone's super excited for whoever wins it. But like having that kind of like connection point where people could still have that community connection, and at the same time, like a lot of the challenges would come from utilizing the nutrition app, and so they would have to kind of use both to be able to
and that's a paid app, right? So kind of tell us how you set up that the financial aspects of this.
Yeah, so it is a paid app. It is a freemium model, so it is free for some features, and then for like the bigger features that require a lot more space and power and data, those end up being the premium features for the app. And so Glucose Guide is also a nonprofit, which is something else that kind of
I forgot to tell him that.
throws a wrench into things. So we consider our subscriptions donations to the organization. And then subscriptions are a pay what you can model. So you can use the app for free if you can't pay anything. And then you get to decide from $5 and up what you want to pay monthly. And so it works out for everyone, which is really nice because it is a tax deductible donation for the user, but then it is also support for us being able to maintain and continue to build and add features and connections to the app. And then it also makes the app profitable because it all kind of at the end of the day goes back to like, how is it making money to be able to sustain itself, because it can't otherwise. And what I have kind of loved about this model is that people often also pay it forward. They will like buy a subscription for someone else, or they will they're like, oh, like I might not be using it myself, but like I want to gift it to someone. And it's like,
is that possible in the app? Is it set up to be able to do that?
It is set up to be able to do that.
Because I know you can do that on YouTube. Like you can get a subscription for somebody. That's cool.
Yeah. And so I wanted the whole goal was access. It was to make it accessible, easy for people. And then also, if you don't live with diabetes, I think it's maybe hard to picture it, but you have to spend so much money to manage type 1 diabetes, type 2 as well. But there are devices, like you guys have probably all seen my little
patch,
CGM. Those are super expensive. I wear an insulin pump. It's super expensive. Insulin is super expensive. And so cost was a huge consideration for me because I didn't want anyone to feel like I really want this as a tool, but I can't afford it or I can't access it. And so from day one, I wanted to make sure that there were free aspects that like anybody could utilize and still get like mostly full usage of the app, but then that we were also able to sustain it because it is a pretty big cost burden to manage tech. And so I wanted to make sure that like it would be usable, sustainable, and accessible for anybody who wanted to be a part of it.
Right. And then, that you had enough money to live off too. So that's the other part of it. So, I want to talk about this money part because we've been talking about all the fun, but part of it is the realities of running a business like this, or any business. Running a business is difficult, like meeting payroll if you have employees, or subscription costs or data costs or whatever those costs are. Early on, I know that you did a lot of people, you had a lot of sponsors, like big, sponsors that wanted to get into your community. How is that working now? Like, are you able to get people to donate, like big donors, or what are you pursuing? What's working? What's not working? I want to hear the real story.
Okay, I'll take the mask off. Mask off. I told somebody this the other day. They were asking me if I wanted to be on a panel about like not losing your mind in the midst of the news. And I was like, oh, I'm not losing my mind. Like it's happening, but I can recommend someone else that might be better. But like, I think that part is the hardest part. It is, I've been so lucky, I think, because I've had really good partnerships. I've been really focused on earning grants for our work, especially like as a nonprofit. Grants can like be the difference between like having funding to do so much and like having nothing to just kind of maintain. So that's been a huge part of my focus lately. I think though, like we're in a really interesting and difficult time in that respect because so many things are being shifted budget-wise. Organizations or like grant makers that like I had worked with before coming back and saying, we just don't have capacity this year because we've lost XYZ. And so like we're tightening the purse strings this year to kind of like get things back on track or like anticipate what's to come. And so a lot of it, like for me, has been self-funded. And that's been, I think, really, really a challenge, because it's something that I want to keep doing, something that I want to keep going with. But on the other side of it, like, I can't not pay myself for 4 months.
Yeah, I hear you.
And so it's that I feel like is like the really difficult part, is that like it is such a passion and it is such a like thing that I love doing, but it is really difficult. It's really hard to like operationally keep it afloat and make sure that like everything is like in a row, everything's okay, all of my like community and the people who have joined the app feel supported, feel like they get their questions answered, all of that. And then also at the same time, chase funding for growth and for expansion and for new connections. And so it's really just being strategic about like where I spend that time and how I spend that time. Because like if you've ever applied for a grant, if you've ever applied for a job, it's exactly like applying for a grant. It takes a lot of time. It has to be really tailored. You have to be very specific about your objectives. You have to know budget and how you want to use that funding and be able to explain it. And so it can take like anywhere from 30 to 40 hours to write a grant application. It's not something that's like a super fast process. And so knowing that like, okay, I have to also commit that time.
And you may not get the grant.
And you may not get the grant. You may do all of this work and they may say, no thanks, that's fine. And so like knowing that I have to like put in that effort and like that extra time and those extra hours to be able to do that for just like a chance at something.
I know, it's rough.
That's, I think, like very mentally rough. I'm like, do I even really want to do that? But I
have some ideas for you offline for that.
Okay.
We'll talk about it. I have something like that for proposals that I've written, but using AI in a certain way. Anyway.
But like the other part of it is that like I never also gave up like my full passion of marketing. So I still do that. And I still have clients who I love and who I do like really awesome freelance work for. And so that's kind of the reality for me too, is like you see this really amazing app, you see this really amazing community, and it's done solo. It's done like, it's just me. It's like, that's it. But I also am like, I understand the reality of like, it's cool to want to like dream and live in my influencer life forever, but like, that's not going to happen. I have to be realistic that, my rent's going to be due on the 1st every month. And so
even if you were in like Times Square and you had your face up on a banner, at the end of the day, you have to pay your rent at the end of the month.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's the other thing that I think like I want people to know. And I think that's why I say like the mask is off, because like, it's not my only thing. Like I am making sure to diversify so that I am not in the pitfall of a situation where like my community maybe has to go by the wayside because I can't pay for any of it, or I can't like keep it going.
Right.
And so, but I also like marketing is like that other passion for me that like I could do it all day. I love it so much that it also doesn't feel like work, and I still get to work for myself. And I feel lucky in that way too, that what I do as a like solo agency also like helps to impact my work and helps to support it and helps to like grow it while I can also still have a paycheck, which is nice.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Thank you for being honest, because I think it feels like, I think whenever you're doing something like this, that you're maybe the only one, just like your audience was saying, they felt like they're the only ones with suffering or dealing with diabetes. When there's people all around them that are, we just don't talk about it, right? So we don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, and nobody wants to admit that, I think. I've actually been wrestling with this for a little while because I have this draft of a LinkedIn newsletter, and it's called I Quit. And I wrote it when I was really, really angry at myself and my job. And I was like, I can't share that. People are going to think I'm a mess. Like, and, but I think it's the reality for a lot of us, like whether you're in a full-time job or you're an entrepreneur, like you're feeling the crunch, you're feeling the pressure, and you're also feeling like resources are getting a little more finite. And I think like sometimes like you need that moment of kind of throwing your hands up in the air and being like, I got to be done for now, to like reset and get back to a place where you feel like you can make it happen. And that's, I think that's just like, it's a true reality for a lot of us. And I hate to admit that, like, especially like when you look through my feed and you see all the good highlights,
all the beautiful,
and
it is beautiful.
Like, and it's like, it's the work I love doing. Like I do all of it, like the photography, the like recipe development, like all of it. It's like my joy. I love it. But it's also like, you know, sometimes I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm like, is this is
the
this
plants growing in your house,
right
like
now?
the plants growing in your apartment, like your food supply?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's got cool stuff, guys. You got to follow her on Instagram. She's pretty cool. I have some time for questions. So I know some of you may have some for Mila. Yes. All right. I'm going to give up my mic.
Hi, Mila. Thank you for everything you said. It was great. I'm just curious, you know, with the start of your journey, did you find a particular turning point where you're like, okay, this whole process is gaining traction and this ball is rolling and it's go? And if so, or was it many turning points? And if so, what was it?
I kind of feel like it was many turning points. And if you think about, there's this like, it's like this meme or like graphic, and it's like you started here and then you went down here and then you came back up here and then you went down here and then you get up here and then you went down here. And so I feel like that's how my journey's always been. It's been this kind of like up and down of like, I don't want to like reduce it to wins and losses, but it definitely feels like that sometimes. And I think truly like the baseline of all of this working is the fact that I am so delusional. Like I think that I can do just about anything until I prove to myself that I can't. And that's just how my brain works. So like full delusion. And like it's only after when I like look back on it, I'm like, yeah, that was okay, interesting. Like that maybe wasn't the best idea, or like, no, I could see why that didn't work now. But I think that like that's a big part of why I've been able to make it work, is because I have not only like this passion for this area, but also this like belief in myself that I'm doing the right thing. And that also comes from the feedback that I get from the people who utilize it. That's typically what I'm looking at every day. Like that's how I know what the trajectory is looking like for me. Like if my users are saying like, the app is really slow today, I don't really like XYZ, this feature doesn't make sense to me, or I want this feature, then I know that I've got that feedback that can tell me like, okay, I'm going in the right direction, or I'm not going in the right direction, and maybe I need to do some more introspection or ask my users like more specifically for their feedback. And so I think that those are the things that really, at the end of the day, make me understand the journey and where it's going, and like particularly that user feedback, because if they're not happy, then like I haven't done my job for them, and I kind of have to figure out how to do it. But I will say like one big thing that happened, but interestingly wasn't a turning point, was that I got featured on 5 billboards in Times Square. And I didn't have to pay for the advertising. It was like the joy of my life. Some of my community members, like I let it slip that it was happening. I wasn't supposed to tell anybody, but I let a few of them know. And a bunch of them that were in New York City were like, hey, I want to come and support you. And so like people that I had never met before, literally have only met in the context of my app, and community came and supported. And so that was a big deal. That made me feel like, okay, people are showing up and like they actually really like this space. Interestingly enough, the actual billboards, I don't think really did anything for my business, but but they were really cool. And like, yeah, it was cool to see my face up on a like 20-story building. Well, it was actually overwhelming. I cried a little bit because I was freaked out. I was like, oh no, nobody should ever see their face that large. But like, I think in a way, I think that was like a really big turning point, was like seeing my community actually show up in person, and then also like getting the feeling of like, okay, I wouldn't be here if this wasn't a big deal. Yeah.
First off, I love that your name is Mila. My name is Jamila.
Jamila.
And your app is amazing, by the way. I think you've partially answered my question. You've built this amazing community for those with diabetes. Who is your community that you lean into when you're having these up and down moments? Because we all know that's key as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. So first, I would just want to shout out my dog Noodle. Noodle is a miniature poodle, and he is the best cuddle buddy when I'm having the worst days. I mentioned my really my best friend. I've known her since we were in 6th grade, Katie. She is literally there for like every 3 a.m. text where I'm like, I broke the whole app, I don't know what to do. And she's like, just Control Z, it's fine, and go to bed. Why are you awake at 3 a.m? I'd also say my husband, like, he is my biggest champion. Like, where I will stand in a room and hide, and I won't tell anybody about what I do and how I do it. He'll be the first one to be like, do you know what she does? Do you know how cool she is? And I think that like having a supportive partner and somebody who like is okay with you staying up till 3 a.m. coding is golden. And it doesn't always happen. In my previous life, it did not happen. So it's nice to have that now as a support system. And then I think also, like, I just have really great like friendships and people who just go to bat for me. Like, I don't even ask. I don't even say like, oh, I need like help sharing the app or promoting it or whatever. Like, they'll be like, oh, I ran into this lady in the grocery store and I told her about your app today. Like, people who are just so kind and so giving. And so I think like I'm lucky to have that immediate support system. And also those people who have been in my life just for so long, who understand like they get to see all the ugly stuff. They get to see all of the frustration. They get to read the blog drafts of I quit. Like, and I think that's golden. And I think it is so important. Like, that's such a great question, because you can't do this kind of stuff by yourself. Like, even if you're physically doing the work by yourself, you need the mental and like physical support sometimes. I'll add my therapist to that list of my support system. It's so important to have just like a neutral talking space. And that has been also golden for me. And then otherwise, I mean, honestly, like, the community that I serve has given, I feel like, the love that I showed them, that love like tenfold back to me. And that is also something that I feel like has been really remarkable in the process of building this thing, especially most of it by myself, is feeling like there are people who use the product and also have my back, and they're like, they know it forwards and backwards. They want to give feedback. Even if the feedback is something that is criticism, they give it back to me in like such a kind way. And they're like, we know that you're doing something great. Like, we want this to be better, not just for us, but for you too. So I think like all of those all those people and things are part of my support system.
Yeah. I think that this first, I just want to congratulate Cammie that this topic is so close to something that I actually want to do that it's just barely off to the side, and you may have already integrated it, and I just haven't found it yet. Is that Atkins? And I'm a devotee to Atkins, and have lost a lot of weight due to that. And so wondering if you have integrated some of that into it, and how much extra effort it was to do that, or any other program similar to Atkins that you've integrated into the idea of doing this. And it's also sort of odd to be here at an Impact Hub event, and I don't see Jeff or Grace.
I think so. To answer your question about kind of like integrating like diet protocols, my app keeps it open at this point so that anybody who has any particular eating pattern can kind of select their own journey, because diets, what you eat, everything is so personal, so individual. So I think that it allows that flexibility in that way to give people the space that they need to be able to kind of select their journey. The other thing is that we do integrate, and I hadn't thought about Atkins, so thank you for saying that, because I'll probably go home and do that today and work on that till 3 a.m. But the one of the features of our app is that we put together meal plans for people who want kind of like in a structure of what to eat. The meal plans are based on the user's preferences, and within their preferences, we do have things like low carb, keto, high protein, paleo, Mediterranean diet, low sodium diet, kidney diet. So like the user can kind of select what eating pattern matters most to them, and the information that's delivered back to them is specific to that pattern of eating. And it's just kind of like open to anybody who wants to select those things. And then the other thing is that you can select multiples. So if you're on like a low sodium and Mediterranean, you can select both of them, and then the parameters around the meals will ensure that it kind of stays within that area, so that you're not going over on your sodium intake. And then you're also eating ingredients that kind of fall within the realm of that diet. So Atkins, that's a long way of saying Atkins isn't included yet, but yet. The word is yet. Yet.
Any other questions? Yes. Run. We're gonna give him. He's got his workout today.
Already. Fitness is important too, right? No, so this is more of a social media question, I think. So you have the app, you have the community, you have the social media presence with the accounts, the blog as well, and then you have just general reach on social that's driving people to all those other channels. What's the ratio there? Like at the very end where the app is versus what the engagement is, like how does that break down? Like what percentage of people who are actively using the app are followers or are involved in the community? Like how many people do you need for the app to be sustainable? I guess whenever you're looking at follower count, where you're looking at engagement, you're looking at just views and reach.
Yeah. So the interesting thing right now is that we broke even at 75 paid users at $5 a month, which is like our costs are like pretty low. That was interesting to me because I honestly thought it was going to be a lot higher. Like it.
Paying yourself your time there.
No. I'm not paying myself for my time. I can definitely tell you I'm not paying myself for my time. Like we always need more users. So right now we're at 800 daily users. 75 of them are paid. I know. I want them to pay. I really do. I really do. But I also want it to be accessible. And that is, I think, like the push and pull that I constantly deal with, is that like I'm happy that 800 people a day are using it, like on a daily basis, 10 to 15 minutes at a time. Like people are really spending their time in the app, and they're actually like really utilizing it, and it's really helpful to them, or else they wouldn't be coming back and they wouldn't be using it. But I think that also speaks to like the strategy that I have. Like I'm just not pushing hard enough for paid users.
So then, we're talking those numbers on the other side. Like, what is your follower count for social? And then what's the average blog readership per post?
Yeah, so I can give you like more general than that maybe, but so like my blog, 30,000 readers a month individually. Social, like my personal accounts are at like 47,000. The Glucose Guide accounts are maybe at like 1,500. So pretty low, but I promote mostly through my big accounts. Yeah, because it's got the reach there. And so like that's the thing that I also struggle with too, is like I feel like I have the numbers, I have the people, I have people who are like deeply committed to the community, who really love what I do, but it's translating them into paid users. They're not converting. Like they're converting in a way, like they're still using the product and the application, but they're not using it as paid users. The other thing is that like a lot of the like numbers and engagement are things that I use to pitch partnerships. So like the numbers, that's also where I kind of look at it as like, this is okay for now. Like it's not sustainable for the long term, but it's okay for now because I also have some really good numbers that I can present to partners to say like, if we're working together, you are getting eyeballs on you because people are in the app, like they are in it, they are using it. If you show up there, like you're going to show up and people are going to be able to connect to you that way. And so I think that's maybe something I didn't mention was like the 3 ways of really funding the app are through grants, through partnerships. So like working with food companies, diabetes companies, like anyone who's kind of like applicable to that space, and then paid subscriptions. And right now paid subscriptions is like the lowest tier of what actually gets the app, that like gets it funded. So and I feel like I have to work in those 3 areas just because like as it grows, especially like last year was really the first year that it was live and launched. And so really like in that time and space, I've been like, okay, like I kind of need to divide a little bit to be able to grow it, particularly without seed funding. That's another thing that I think gets forgotten, is that like lots of companies just get like millions of dollars in funding and like they can kind of like scale really fast however they can. And I've had to approach it really slowly, yes, by bootstrapping it. And doing it with like what I can make for the app. And so that's also, I think, like such a great question and a good like a good thing to think about if you're trying to build your own thing, is like you might have to bootstrap it for a while, and you might have to kind of find like other alternative means of funding before you can really get that subscriber base that is going to pay for your product.
It's going to be a lot easier to get an extra 75 people paid for it than it is to get another 50,000 followers.
For sure. For sure.
Thank you for sharing your story. Really inspirational. Thanks. Question is, like, what are your biggest expenses to run the app? I know there's different areas. I think you alluded to like data or some sort of, can you kind of go through that just briefly?
Yeah, I feel like
I know there's probably a lot there, but
I think my time is probably the biggest expense that I don't pay for. Yeah, do the math. So like, you know, I'm basically working for free. So I have a free employee, which is pretty cool. And then really for kind of like the like basic setup. So for like hosting and hosting management, I'm paying like $250 a month for just the hosting. I'm also in the App Store and the Google Play Store, and they take about 40% of your earnings. So that's always nice.
Joy.
So I actually try and circumvent the process. Don't tell Apple, even though I'm saying this on the live stream. And we run like all of our payments through Stripe and through the community side, which helps out a lot. But then there's also like the fees that get pulled from Stripe for every transaction. We pay about $20,000 a year for our community setup. And that includes like the development of the app throughout the year, any updates, which is really nice because like the community side completely gets taken off of my plate. And then for like the actual build, like in using like the building tools that I've been using, Build AI Space, is about like $220 a month. So like truly like the lift itself and like the investment is not gigantic. And it actually like,
But that's about $1,000 a month-ish, a little bit under 7, 8.
yeah. And so like, it's a pretty, especially doing it solo, doing it, you know, pretty minimally. We do pay for our Passio API, and that is like based on our usage. Like our tokens are based on usage. Right now, I think we're spending like $20 a month on Passio, and the USDA data is free because it's government data. So they just allow anybody to connect to it within their rate limits. So like what's really cool is like, I mean, I feel like I just gave away all my trade secrets. Like anybody could really go and just build this app right now if they wanted.
But they would
to.
not have you, and they would not have
But they
your
wouldn't have
community.
me.
And they wouldn't
Yeah.
have the community, which is
Yeah.
a huge part of
And
this.
that's actually, this goes outside of your question of budget, but what's been really interesting is seeing the like proliferation of vibe coding apps and getting emails like to my email of people who are like, I created a carb counting app and I just would love for you to be an influencer and try it. And I just start laughing because I'm like, oh my God, like everybody and their mama has a carb counting app now. But I think what's really interesting is kind of looking at the landscape, like nobody else focuses on community. Nobody else focuses on the like individual person who is actually looking for the help and the lift. And that ends up differentiating it a lot because some people will want to use the tools on their own, but some people really desire that coaching and that help and that like handhold. And it makes a difference for them. And a lot of people who are creating these kind of like vibe coding apps don't have the same background and the same education and the same like ability to be able to actually like create these tools that function in a way that works for the user. So
Well, and expertise still matters. Bringing that into the thing, I think that's one of the things you bring is all of these decades of experience, not only with your own healthcare, but also with understanding how marketing works and listening to people. That's critical because you can then make that app like you have shape around the needs of the people that are talking to you. If you don't have that connection, you can't do that. You don't have that data source. So anyway, we are at the end, guys. I do want to say thank you so much to Mila. Could you give her a big hand, please?
thank y'all.
Really quick for us, next month we have Tracy Shannon, who's one of my employees. Actually, she's coming from Buffalo, New York. She has been putting together a really cool storytelling type of process. So she's going to bring that process to us next month. So you can think about how you tell your story in a way that will attract these kinds of communities around your brand. We also are bootstrapping at Social Media Breakfast of Houston. If you see on your table, make sure that you have signed up. If you're not on our email list, there's a QR code for that. And also, if you have a couple of dollars to throw into the hat for coffee, we do have sponsors as well. If you'd like to sponsor one of our breakfasts, it's $200, so it's not too much. But if not, then I'm sponsoring today, so you're welcome. So it's always good to have a little bit of to chip in on that. So that's what we put out. I like to keep this free as well, so it's accessible and so that you guys can come and don't have to feel like you can't afford to be here. So thank you so much for being here, and we will be back next month with more amazing things. Mila, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. You know I love you. Anyway, I had to share her with you, so hopefully you guys approve. Take care.